Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Tuesday, wrapping it up for February here on the 28th day. And again, man, it's crazy how fast things go anymore. 800-951-0592. Of course, the physical delivery of wealth insurance, gold and silver. It is what we do. AllAmericanGold.com is the website. And Jason, in March, we kind of didn't do a lot with our YouTube channel in February, but in March, we're going to kick things off. We're going to get things rolling here. We're going to do a lot of fun things. Right now, I'm working on a big giveaway. We're going to give away a bunch of gold and silver. I think we're going to have a lot more like short clips and educational pieces. And we're going to do a lot with the channel here in the future.
Yeah, Joe and I both have ideas of what we can do to increase what we're already doing. It takes a little time, and we're building it, right, Joe? So it's we'll have lots of announcements and things that we're looking at, and the visual side of things. Once we get a few things out of the way, we'll be focusing on that a lot more. So we want people to take a look at what we're doing here, and the giveaways will be cool.
Giveaways are going to be fun. We're going to make it really, really easy, which is going to be the great part. And like everything we do here, don't worry. We don't share information with anyone. We don't sell your information. We don't give it all out. When you do things with Patriot, it is as private as we can make it anyway. Right, Jason? I mean, all these other things out there that we can't control. But as far as what we're going to be doing, you won't have to worry about that. But I'm pretty excited about it. We got some cool things coming right now. We haven't heard much out of the central bank since the minutes meeting gaffe, right? So it's obviously everybody kind of is under the conclusion that maybe the minutes to the meeting aren't actually the minutes to the meeting. But we did get inflation data out of Europe today, and very similar, same story. Much hotter than expected. That's got gold rallying, and that makes sense, right? Because now all of a sudden, Europe's got to raise rates higher, so the pound and the euro getting some strength. Gold's up $10, and matter of fact, gold's up the highs of the day right now. So we'll continue to watch how all of this plays out. But Jason, we're 2 weeks and a day away from another Fed rate hike.
Yeah, it's coming. it's coming. I saw a thing, and I forget which bank it was, but one of the guys saying they don't believe that inflation will get down to, I think the guy said by December of 2025, he believed that's when they'll get it down to 2.75. This is like one of the banks, Joe.
And I really think that 2% is about done. We're probably that's another thing they're going to retire, right? Remember when they retired transitory? I told you way back when, and where did 2% come from? And for those of you, you're like, what is he talking about, 2%? So the Federal Reserve tells us, and they tell us every meeting. They tell us every time they're on TV, which is pretty much all the time, that, we want inflation to be 2%. And of course, we know what that means, right? It means that, hey, we want your money to buy 2% less this year than it did last year. And we want to do that every single year. Well, that didn't used to be the case. It's not like when they created the central bank in 1913 that they made this grandiose announcement. Hey, we want to devalue your money 2% every year. No. One of their mandates, and really their original mandate, was to have a stable dollar. Well, let's see, how good of a job have they done in 110 years? They took a $20 bill and a $20 gold piece that were completely interchangeable And really, they've done it in 90 years, really, because they didn't get rid of the $20 gold pieces till 1933. But now that $20 gold piece is on sale for $2,035. So if you really think about it, that's got to be, I mean, how stable would you call that? But again, I guess the illusion of stability, they actually didn't create this 2% thing until the financial crisis. That was one of the things that Ben Bernanke and Janet Yellen came up with. Is it rooted in any sort of economic lore? Like, I must have been something that they learned at Harvard and Yale. They must have learned that. They must have had a class about economics that said 2% is the holy grail, and the Lord himself will come down and bless the $20 bill. Come to find out, guess what? They just made it up because they thought it sounded good. Like, oh, well, 2%. Hey, we didn't say 5%. We only said 2%. Well, guess what now, Jason? They're getting ready to do exactly what I told everybody was going to happen in 2008. Yeah. How about 3%? Who knows? It may even be 4%. Why not? How about how's that for the stability of the Federal Reserve note? Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. A quick market recap here. The Dow is down triple digits. Get used to that. I'm just telling you right now. Get used to that. This thing is way, way overpriced. I hope you've reached out to Joey because it's going to be 2022 was ugly. 2023 is going to be uglier. The S&P and the NASDAQ are slightly in positive territory. Gold's up 10, 18.34. Silver's up 15 cents at $20, $20.82. This market recap brought to you by our friends over at YRefi. Listen, you don't need to worry about what's happening in all the other debt markets. You get a high fixed rate of return. It's not correlated to stocks. It's not correlated to the Fed. Doesn't care about the minutes. Doesn't care about inflation. A portfolio where each month, you know what it's going to be. There is no surprises. You don't have to go, man, it's been a bad month. I don't want to look at my 401k statement. I'm just not going to look at it. At YRefi, you don't have to worry about it. Obviously, you got to have 50,000. Everybody knows that. You can use an existing IRA. Check them out. InvestYRefi.com. That's the word invest. The letter Y, REFY.com. Or call them at 888-YRefi24. And Jason, we've got a lot of soft data. Yesterday we did the Dallas Fed, where Dallas, the Federal Reserve of Dallas was talking to all of its manufacturers. We got the exact same thing out of New York, out of Philadelphia, out of Chicago, out of Richmond, right? You go through all of them were the same. Today, we had the leading economic indicators out again. Extremely, extremely soft. And we've got this, hey, the labor market's still tight. The retailers, look at Target today. Holiday spending was up only 1%. That's not good. Not when inflation, even what they admit to, 6.5? Well, if your sales weren't up 6.5, they were actually down. Right? I mean, that's how inflation works. And then, of course, Target gave very bad guidance. Of course, remember, Walmart did the same thing. Home Depot did the same thing. And then yesterday, General Motors saying that they are going to take a pause at their Fort Wayne assembly plant By the way, this plant builds the most popular versions of the Chevy Silverado and the GMC Sierra. That's the half ton. That's the hey, I got a truck, but I don't actually need it for work. I just like a truck, right? I drive it to and from my desk job. Here's the thing. Think about this. For the last couple of years, they've had problems. We don't have any chips, right? We can't build the vehicles. General Motors says, oh, that's not the problem. Matter of fact, the problem is we finally got the chips, Jason, and we've built the trucks. Apparently, nobody's been buying the trucks. And now General Motors says our two most popular pickup trucks, we've got too much inventory. And the plant in Indiana starting May 27th is going to close for at least 2 weeks because they don't have enough buyers for their vehicles.
And see, this is where the inflation coming back and being stronger. I'm even though inflation doesn't seem to be cooling off now, it looks like we're going to keep up with this higher level. I still see higher inflation in the future. One of the things that slowed down inflation, Joe, which we didn't really understand, I didn't really pay attention to until now, which the amount of money they printed versus the amount of goods and services that are out there. Remember all the ships sitting out there in the ocean. Remember that, Joe? All the full warehouses and all that. This is where I feel like this whole thing, it's always rigged and planned. If you have a ton of stuff, even if people aren't completely keeping up with the buying, you have ships out there that are unloaded, and they're going to tell you supply line. They give you all the excuses. But if you have tons and tons and tons of stuff preloaded so that your inflation doesn't go so hot because the dollars that they printed are there, at some point, people stop buying. So we already have the inflation. They've stocked up everything massively. They've been building warehouses like crazy to store all this stuff. But just what Joe reported, okay, we're going to stop making stuff. We're just going to pause for 2 weeks. People aren't buying stuff from Target during Christmas. They're not buying stuff from Walmart. Well, that money is still swimming around. And as other countries bring more U.S. treasuries due and they just keep throwing more dollars here, they stop building the stuff, Joe. That I think it's kind of a little game they play to try to keep the inflation from really going crazy. Now what are they going to do? Now the stuff's going to stop being built because people aren't selling anything, Joe. Eventually, it's just going to be dollars floating around. And what's going to happen to the prices of things at that point, Joe?
Yeah, and again, I've already told you, get ready because it's going to happen. And I hate to say it, the Detroit Press saying Chevy Silverado 1500s, the most popular version of that truck. Over 100 days of supply currently on the market. And again, to Jason's point, here's the problem. The amount it costs General Motors to build these trucks is through the roof. And of course, they've got to pass that on. And with interest rates when interest rates were at zero and General Motors could have come out, think about what General Motors would have done. Think about what they would have done right now. They would have went 0% on the Chevy Silverado 1500 to get rid of them. Can't do that anymore. Can't do it. Can't make it happen. How about this one? 1 month after Fitch, now, of course, Fitch, the rating agency, most Americans can't afford their car payment. By the way, think about this. This year, 2023, almost 1 in every 5 auto loans, not leases, loans, will be over $1,000 a month. I mean, that's just insanity to think about. That's what that 1 in 5 loans will be over $1,000 a month, which just tells you the vast majority of car loans are probably what, Jason, $700-800?
If you're making $25 an hour before taxes, you have to work for 40 hours just to get that car payment, Joe, at $25 an hour. At $25 an hour, 40 hours, that's before tax. Probably have to work 50 hours with the taxes, maybe 55 hours just to make the car payment. If that's at $25 an hour, right, Joe? That's there's a lot of people not getting $25 an hour.
The Fed is reporting now the average new car loan exceeds $40,000, and again, there's no end in sight, and it's now claimed a pretty big victim here, according to Bloomberg. One of the largest used car dealers in the country, American Car Center, told all of its employees it was closing its doors just one day after the company had hoped to sell $222 million in bonds. Apparently, nobody wanted the bonds. The used car retailer now says that it will cease all operations, closing its headquarters in Memphis, Tennessee. All of its employees would be terminated by the end of the business day. This company had over 40 dealerships across 10 states. Jason, everyone as of today no longer working for this company.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's the one thing you've said over and over and over again. The job losses will create that demand destruction, which will stop the inflation. And the other side of this is the interest rates have to be high enough to be above that inflation rate. So it's going to happen at some point, Joe. Like I said, the Fed's been dragging their feet for whatever reason. They know how to handle this. We just talked about how the rates would shift dramatically in the 70s and the 80s, and they're just not doing it. And of course, the debt's a big part of that. But still, Joe, at some point, you got to make a decision, right? You got to. It's the system we live under. Unfortunately, they got to do the right thing and get this thing going. But I don't, Joe, what's the reason to go slow, really? I mean, they have bad options. You've got to wonder why are they doing it in the fashion they're doing it? Why not just become completely irresponsible, just print money, or why don't you just jump on the rates and destroy the market for a while and get over it?
The answer for the rates is simple. The house of cards comes crashing down. If the Fed comes out, which they should have done and should do in 2 weeks and a day, they should raise the interest rate by a full point. And really probably by 2 points, but full point. The problem is all of the debt underneath that now becomes an issue. We're starting, we saw PIMCO essentially hand the keys back on $1.8 billion of commercial real estate. Now we have a pretty major used car dealer just go under literally in a day. Just in a single day. Hey, we're out of business. We got 40 dealerships across 10 states. Everybody's out of work. And the realities simply are this is, hey, we two things. Number one, we don't have any sales. And then number two, the sales that we did have, people aren't making the payments because they're a subprime type of a dealer. So they carry a lot of their own paper. And what they're saying is no one's paying the bill.
Yeah, the $1,000 a month, or even at $700 or even $500 a month, Joe, you lose your job or you're in a job transition because you're one of the guys that lost their jobs. Suddenly riding the bus becomes the option because you don't have to have a car, right? These are those decisions that get made when the job market gets lean and people are all scrambling to pay the bills. So yeah, it's coming. Riding the bus, right, Joe?
Yeah, and again, I think this is setting up here just the way a lot of us thought. We were extremely misled by the central bank for about 4 months. It started in October when they told us, oh my gosh, inflation's coming down. Said it in November, said it in December, said it again in January, had a big press conference where every 2 minutes they blasted out disinflation. And then all of a sudden, in a matter of days, oh, whoops, maybe we had a mistake in the spreadsheet. Inflation didn't come down nearly as much as we thought it did. And then, of course, we never really mentioned disinflation in the meeting and blah, blah, all this other nonsense. This is something we said it very early on, which is, and go back to what Jason and I were saying a year and a half ago. We are talking about a double Great Depression, which is, the Depression, they said, was a deflationary event, right? In other words, nobody was buying anything and all the prices collapsed. And really what it was a bunch of banks behaving badly, taking on a bunch of risky loans, and they went under, right? Let's not kid ourselves. They went under. The same thing happened again in 2008, right? They took on a bunch of risky loans. We know what do they call the liar loans and all this stuff, right? And again, where was the central bank overseeing all this stuff, right? Where were they? Oh, that's right. Ben Bernanke was telling it was just a subprime problem. Well, fast forward to today, and after 15 years of zero, all of a sudden, all of these businesses, what are they going to do when they need to refinance their debt? We're going to talk about that next. 800-951-0592. Gold still up 10 here, 1835. Silver's up, let's call it 20 cents, 20.86 right now. The Dow is down another 100 points as inflation data in Europe came in much hotter than expected, which means obviously the ECB, they're going to have to continue to raise rates as well. But, one of the things we haven't talked about that needs to be talked about, especially when it comes to business. And I'm not talking about my business. Okay? I'm not talking about us small business owners. Right? We like me, I've got a loan on a couple of buildings that I pay every month, right, to pay them off. Right? I've got a line of credit, right? You borrow against the line, you pay the line off. But these big companies, that's not how they operate. Almost all of their borrowing, whether they borrow money to buy back their own stock, borrow money to invest in a factory, borrow money to buy materials, whatever it may be, it's almost always done on a 7-year adjustable rate loan with a balloon payment, because they just want to pay the least amount possible. No. Is every loan done like that? No. But a lot, especially companies that have big money problems. It's been great. Think about it. If you borrowed money in, 1999, your balloon payment was coming due in 2006, you're like, yeah, great, we're just going to refinance. Just refinance. We're not going to make the balloon payment, just refinance. And the rate got lower. Hey, you actually saved money. Oh, man, look. Hey, guys, isn't this great? It went down. And then for the last 15 years, with the very small exception, and think about how quickly that exception ended, by the way. I'm going to make another big prediction here. Quantitative tightening will end before the calendar rolls over. Quantitative tightening will end before 2023 is over. Why? Because it doesn't work. They can't. Doesn't work. And all of these companies now, Jason, think about it now. It's 2023. What if they borrowed in 2016? Hey, the balloon payment's coming. Well, obviously we can't afford that. Well, we're going to refinance. Wait a minute. What? Wait, what? Our payments what? How much? Oh, we can't. What do you think happened to this used car dealership? They tried to raise some money because the balloon payment was due. They couldn't refinance. And guess what? They're out of business. And they're out of business literally in 24 hours. Jason, I think there's going to be a pattern. We're going to see a lot of it, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be like dominoes. Right now, we're just seeing a little bit. Personal bankruptcy. Haven't talked about that in a long time. And I will be the first one to tell you, super, super low level. Right? Because think about the government for 2 years did everything to hand everybody money. But do you know that personal bankruptcies are up 20%? And that was at the end of 2022. Jason, I think this bankruptcy wave is just getting started.
I think that's exactly right. That car dealership you're talking about, sometimes we talk about these boom and bust cycles, and it's for a lot of businesses, it's like a game of musical chairs, and you get the music stops and there's not enough chairs, right? That's what happened to these guys. If you're, you got your business loan in 2021, right when the inflation was starting, but you can get the lower rates. Yeah, your balloon payment might not be happening for a couple of years. You might be okay for a while, right, Joe? But business carries on. It doesn't matter if the economic cycle is doing well or if it's doing poorly. The drums of business have to beat on, and so this company was ill-timed, right, Joe? And the longer this thing goes, the more ill-timed it's going to be for more people. So your statement of more bankruptcies coming, yeah, this thing is severe, and it's going to get people that are short-term not ready, and it's going to get some of the guys that are long-term not ready. It's a severe situation, Joe.
Yeah, there's no good winner in this, and this is like I said, this is why the rate hikes make it so much different. Because now all of a sudden, companies that, hey, you know what? It's not great, but it's not terrible. I've got this debt burden. And as long as that debt burden doesn't get any worse, I think we can get by. Now, because of interest rates, they can't. Remember, I was telling you about some of our customers. I haven't bought a car in 8 years. I haven't bought a car in 10 years. I haven't bought a car in 5 years. Need a car. Need a vehicle. Go down to get a new one, because that's what I do. I've always bought a new car. I'm a solid middle-class American. And I don't want to have to worry about, well, I don't know what happened to this used car, right? I don't want to buy a lemon. I don't want to drive it off the lot, and 60 days later that I need transmission, the brakes, and I need tires, right? All this stuff. I'm going to get a new car. That's what I do. And you know what? I'm a Ford guy, or I'm a GM guy, I'm a Toyota guy, whatever it may be. And they go down there. And already first thing they go, well, I know, I've heard things got expensive. And you go down and you go look and you're like, whoa. Wait, that one cost how much? It doesn't even have electronic seats. It doesn't have seat heaters. It doesn't have this and that. And it's $60,000 stripped. If I want it to be, somewhat, what I think would be middle class like, 80, 90, 100 grand. Well, okay, but I've got my car here. I've got my car. I'm going to trade that in. Well, how much more money do you want to put on that? I don't put another 5 or 10 grand on top of it. Yeah, that should probably make my payment, I don't know, probably, $400 or $500. The guy from the finance room comes back, hey, you got great credit. Hey, your payment's going to be $953 a month. And you're like, what? Yeah, that's what happens when the debt load goes the other way on you. We'll be back right after this. (800-951-0592). Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour here on this Tuesday sticker shock. This is what I do every 5 to 8 years. We go buy a new vehicle. Maybe it's for me, and then 4 or 5 years later we get one for my wife. Then it's my turn. Then it's her turn. And the last time you did it, you're paying $400 or $500 a month. Now all of a sudden you show up, and it's $1,000. Now think about these businesses that have these 5-year, 7-year arm payments with the balloon at the end. And they've been doing this for the last 20 plus years. Now we just refi. We're just going to refi. It's no problem. Everything's going up. We'll refi. Well, all of a sudden now you go to refi and they show you what your new payment's going to be with the new interest rate. And that company's like, wait a minute. That's hundreds of thousands. That's millions of dollars more than what we've been paying. We do this every 5 to 7 years for the last 20 plus years. And all of a sudden, my payment's double. Next thing you know, guess what they say? We're filing for bankruptcy, Jason. It's just that simple.
Yeah, they go to refinance and they're like, wait a minute, is that the payment or is that the balloon?
Right. I mean, it's just like we talk about all these people with a 3%, 4% mortgage. You're not moving. You're not moving. It doesn't matter. Well, I've got equity in my house. Great. I don't care. Now you want to go buy the better house. I'm going to come in there. I've got 30% down, 40% down. Then they hit you with the payment. You're like, that's more than I'm paying now. Right? And heaven forbid you don't have $20,000 down. The payments are incredible. Here, just the difference between 4% and 6 3/4. Okay, on $1 million. Okay, on $1 million. You're talking about an extra $1,500 plus a month in extra payment. Same price, but it was $1 million last year, and it's $1 million this year. Why do I got to pay $1,500 more? Well, that's the interest rate, Jason. That's what it does.
That's correct. That's the bank. They get that interest. That's their privilege. You pay them for the ability to because who has $1 million to buy a house, or who has half $500,000 to buy a starter house? And so the bank loans you the money, and that's what they, it's not a bad thing that the banks get interest. It's just bad that there's a central banked private control of our monetary system, where now the interest is enslavement, and the cost of that interest to borrow that money has become more and more expensive. And Joe, we might have rate hikes all the way to the end of this year if things keep going the way they look like they're going.
Right now, it's not a very pretty picture. And like I said, we're coming up here at the end of March, going into April, May. This is a time, seasonally anyway, where we see higher oil prices. That's a normal thing. And again, I think that's going to be adding to this to where all at the wrong time, right? The one good thing maybe about oil prices is, hey, you know what? Gas fell $1 a gallon. Right? Hey, gas down $1 a gallon. That matters. Well, all of a sudden now it's risen about 20 or 30 cents. Well, what happens when it goes up another 20 or 30 or 40 cents? Jason, this is kind of the problem that the Fed is in, where they didn't fight it. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. And now all of a sudden they're susceptible to things that really are just normal seasonal things that come at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's right. With the kind of inflation we've had for the last couple of years, and it's going to continue for the next couple of years or longer, for all we know, everything changes, Joe. Your story about the car and buying the car every 5 years, everything changes. Everything with inflation, everything changes. It just the things that you don't think about that you have to buy or maintain or deal with. It's just more and more of an effort. I mean,
most people don't. They don't think about it. They don't realize the effect of it. They had no idea. Like, okay, I know the car's going to be a little more expensive. I didn't know it was going to be double. I didn't know it was going to be double the payment. Credit cards. All of you that have credit card balances, I'm sorry. That's so tough. And now think about this, every 6 weeks or so, that minimum payment, even if I got $10,000 in debt. A year ago, the minimum payment was $153. Today, the minimum payment, it's $227. I still only have $10,000, right? The debt I didn't add to my debt, but my payment's just more.
It's death of 1,000 cuts, Joe. Your natural gas bill goes up. Your electricity bill goes up. Hey, I've adjusted. My boss gave me a raise. We can afford the food that we're buying again. And then maybe you take some supplements on the side. Oh, no, now the vitamin C just costs more. It's like everything just snowballs. That's the whole point, Joe. It's death by 1,000 cuts, right?
800-951-0592. Joe and Jason here. Final segment, Patriot Radio News Hour. (800-951-0592). Patriot Radio News Hour. Just like government borrowing, all of it costs more. All of it costs more. California went from a $100 billion budget surplus in 1 year to a deficit now that's going to be somewhere around $30 billion, if not more. Ohio said the state of Ohio pension system lost $32 billion last year, Jason. They said it's going to take them years to recover. It really is. I mean, the impact on this is still being felt, and it's a slow moving car wreck, isn't it? You see it happening right before the wreck happens, right? You see the cars are swerving, they're about ready to lose control, and it's like in slow motion. I don't know that Jason can hear me, so
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, because this thing seems, we've been talking since I think 2021 when the inflation started coming, and saying, hey, what are they going to do? They're going to have to do rate hikes, and we were expecting some sort of market turbulence, maybe late 2021 or sometime in 2022, and the market is acting strangely. But it's interesting that at the beginning of 2021, how the Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ have been sitting at this level. It goes up a little bit, it goes down a little bit, but it's been just mysteriously hanging out. And we haven't seen this kind of inflation so long. I'll keep saying it, Joe. If we have inflation at these levels for more than 2 years, over 2 years now, you're losing. You're just losing big time. If you had gold sitting there for these last couple of years, you've been doing just fine, even with gold only going up a little bit. Can you imagine, Joe, what hold on to gold for the next 2 years is going to do, right?
Again, when do we see gold rally? When we start entering the tough times. We saw that rally happen at the end of last year. Look how quick it was. Now we've had a little time out, right? A little time out because, hey, we're not done at 5%. Right, we're not done at 5%. The job losses that Bank of America, we're going to lose 175,000 jobs a month. We haven't done that yet. You've gotten an opportunity. I really, honestly, how much time? I don't know, 3 months. 3 months or so. I would say, by the end of summer into the fall, we're going to have a much different economy. Like I just said, I think quantitative tightening comes to an end before the end of the calendar year, which obviously means rate hikes will come to an end before the calendar year. The difference will be, I think they come to an end at a higher level than what we thought 6 weeks ago.
Yes. Yeah, Joe. And I've been on the air with you for about over 5 years. And I talked about the good old days, buying it when it's at a good place. And then, of course, coronavirus came, in 2019, the repo markets, and then gold blew up, reaching all new highs in August of 2020. And then, of course, January 6th happened the next year. Before that, we're like, hey, keep on buying. It's getting ready to explode again. Well, then gold went crazy again in 2021. 2022, it's like, man, you better keep on. There's these spots, Joe, that it seems like more regularly you can get it before it blows up. And of course, then the Ukraine war started. How much gold do we sell then, Joe? It's because these emergencies will keep happening, and this inflation's unceasing. Right now is a great place because it's just, it seems like we're snowballing into something even bigger, doesn't it?
800-951-0592. Jason and I, we're coming right back. We got Steve Stars for the Half Empty Cup.